Sellers are nervous and buyers are winning. We're in a market right now where buyers have all of the power. I'm sorry, sellers, but you're not going to really like this video. This one is more about buyer power. Today, we're going to talk about the four top strategies that buyers can use to win in this market. We're going to highlight the areas where you can get the best deals in the Toronto area, and we're going to talk a little bit about what just happened in the market. So, have you been sitting on the sidelines, panicking, worrying that you're never going to be able to buy a home? And kind of waiting forever and waiting for that bottom to happen, we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do to see when that bottom is or isn't going to happen. What kind of data helps you to kind of understand that? And then we're going to talk about those strategies. Okay, so what happened recently? Well, we've seen a huge drop in sales volume, meaning the number of homes that have actually sold is down about 9.5%. I'm sure you've heard this all over the media. You've also heard that sales are down about 7%. So stay with me. I'm going to highlight which areas the sales are actually down in and which ones. Now, I'm also going to point out that the bloodbath is continuing with pre-construction sales. And I'm going to tell you, for the most part, to stay away from pre-construction sales unless you really know what you're doing or you get a really good deal, which is possible. Then that would actually be on most of the time, it's going to be on homes that have already been sitting there for a little while, and you're going to take advantage of somebody else's pre-construction purchase. Now, what's interesting is that condo inventory is actually improving a little bit. So, for the last year, condo inventory has always been sitting about more than 6 months. Right now, it's actually dropped below 6 months for the first time in a long while. Now, there are certain areas in the city where we are seeing the inventory really increase. If you kind of go northeast in the city, there are areas where we have over 10 months of inventory. That's gigantic. Back in 2021, we had less than 1 month inventory. So what it's basically saying is it's going to take in those areas up to 10 months to sell a home, which is a really long time, obviously. Now we're really pocketed. This market is actually really difficult to navigate. It's very complex, it's very complicated, it's shifted. Now, in some areas, it's shifted a lot more than others, and you really need to understand what's happening. If you look into areas like High Park, Swansea, Leslieville, these are very high demand areas. They're very walkable, they have great schools, and key, they have a lot of semi-detached homes. And one of the top things that buyers are looking for, now the sellers, you might want to hear this, one of the top things that buyers are looking for is actually a semi-detached home. And that's because in a lot of ways, they're moving from a condo into a semi-detached home. And you can get those for, around $1 million. Now, what's really interesting is I actually saw a house sell in High Park, Roncesvalles for $950,000, which was a semi. We haven't seen that in years. Now, that is obviously a bit of an exception to the rule. Now, we know the average home in the Greater Toronto Area is selling for $1,054,000. But of course, it changes as you go across the city into different areas. Now, High Park in Swansea is actually down only in sales about 2.5% versus last year. Now, that is really different because if you look at a couple of areas, one is kind of that Don Mills, Parkland area. They are down dramatically. There's average down about, 16%. If you go just a little bit north, kind of into that kind of Jane area north of the 401, that area is also down significantly. Now, what we're actually seeing is okay, so a few years ago, the kind of wartime bungalow houses, side splits, back splits, houses that were built, say 1950s, 60s, 70s, those ones went way up in price in many ways because they have bigger lots. So they were in a bit more high demand. Now, those ones are seeing huge pressure coming down. So those ones are coming down, like I'm seeing some that are coming down about 17%. So if you're looking to get into kind of one of those family friendly bungalows with that big backyard, kind of close to a subway, you probably can get a good deal on those. If you're somebody who's kind of looking in that, kind of higher 1.8, 1.9, low twos, kind of one of those areas, you can also get a good deal. Now, condos, of course, we've talked about this. There are amazing deals on condos. I had one that was listed at 565,000. I represented the buyer and we got it for $410,000, which is a huge difference versus a couple of years ago. So, buyers, there are condos out there that you can get for around $400,000. Also, our interest rates have come down again. They came down last week and we expect one more drop in December. So you're feeling a little bit of pressure coming off in terms of like how much your mortgage is going to be. All right, let's talk about those top strategies for buyers. Number one is you are going to negotiate really hard. That is, your agent is going to negotiate for you. A couple of years ago, you had to just walk in, pay over asking, not put any conditions on. You couldn't put an offering that was a little bit below asking. They would just laugh at you and walk away. And there may be, 25 offers on the table, so you didn't have a chance. Now you actually have the chance to negotiate your mortgage, or sorry, negotiate your offer way lower. Now, I wouldn't go in, two, $300,000 under asking because what's going to happen, of course, is that seller is going to get insulted. They're not going to talk to you and they're going to walk away. Now, if you ever do negotiating, you may have heard the term anchoring. People anchor themselves to a certain price. Have you ever wanted to buy something and in your head, this is the price you're going to pay, and you're not moving off of that price? You're going to negotiate for that price. Keep in mind your seller has an anchored price in their head, and it's going to be really hard to move them down from that anchored price, especially if they're kind of thinking in terms of emotion and they don't want to understand your logic. Because I'm actually in the middle of negotiating something right now, and the seller wants $2.1 million dollars. All the data shows that the home is worth probably 1.78, 1.8, 1.825, somewhere in that range. But they are anchored to $2.1 million dollars, and he's just holding strong and he doesn't want to let it go. So we're kind of sitting back, kind of saying, okay, hopefully he doesn't get an offer for that 2.1, but we'll see what happens in that case. So what you're going to do is you're going to really strong negotiation skills. Also, you can protect yourself a lot more than you could before. A couple of years ago, say 2020, before that, you were taking a big risk because if you put in something called a firm offer, that means you have no conditions. And that means that if you can't close, you're going to lose your deposit and possibly get sued by the seller. So it's a really big deal. Also, with having no inspection on the home, you may have no idea if you're going to run into any larger problems, especially if you're not someone who spent a lot of time, in older homes kind of looking for different things to see. So now you can put on a finance condition, you can put on a home inspection condition, and in some cases, you can still put on a condition that you're selling your current residence. We haven't seen that clause in 30 years, and now that clause is back again. Now, we're not using that all the time, but you would, on occasion, you can still put that clause back in. So it's really important that you know that you can put your conditions in there. We're also getting better rates. Don't be afraid to negotiate with your lender. Now, I'm going to tell you the first person you talk to at your bank is not going to be the person who's going to give you the best rate. The bank manager has something called their own discrimination, which they can actually usually get you, say, like another half a percentage lower, that kind of thing. You're actually going to shop your mortgage around. Best thing to do, obviously, is talk to a mortgage broker who can reach out to all of their contacts. Now, don't use somebody who's a brand new mortgage broker because unfortunately they don't have the resources in the network, because a lot of what these guys are doing is really heavy networking. And sometimes they can actually get a deal through just because they put through $300 million worth of other business and then yours becomes part of a package. If you go to your own bank, if you have a really, really good relationship with your bank, you have a fantastic credit rating and you are, employed, you have a typical job. Banks love that, and they're more likely to give you a good rate. Now, the banks are also more likely to give you a good rate if you bring them kind of other businesses. So keep that in mind too. Okay, so if you are a buyer, this is the time to act very strategically. You can get a good deal right now. You need to figure out where in the city you want to go. Okay, so you're going to look for deals in kind of those areas where the pressure is really high, where the inventory is really built up, and also the prices are dropping dramatically. Or If you want to be in one of the really popular areas, like High Park, Swansea, Leslieville, those types of places, then you're just going to have to set your expectations and make sure that the home you buy is one you like because you're probably going to be staying there for quite some time. So I want you to think really strategically and I want you to stop panicking because if you do this with thought and planning, you will actually be able to get a good deal that you're very happy about. Again, my name is Marcy Verberg. If you would like to have a conversation or you would like to send me any questions, please do so. Often after my videos, people will send me over their house or a question. They'll ask me for an evaluation, or they might, say, what do you think about this or that? And I'm happy to get them some extra data and provide that for them. My information's below. Have a great day.